It's funny. I talked about this story the first time we told the story. So it's kind of interesting that, you know, we're coming back because you had mentioned at then that we were going to talk about this. So it's kind of cool that we're here now. Um, I think this is a really powerful story. Um, in my retelling of it, we know that it's a great tragedy, but I think that there's a powerful journey that we will go along for this story. So I think it's a beautiful and powerful story, but it's a sad one too, and it's very human.
Yes, yes, that's exactly why I really like the story, and we'll get to my mini analysis and the message that I took from it at the end. But let's jump right into it. So Orpheus, as we said, was the son of a Thracian king, King Ogres, and some say that the muse Calliope was his mother, but we don't have any confidence on this specific data point. He was the most famous poet, singer, and musician of ancient Greece, and some say of all time, if it weren't for the simple fact that he's a mythical character. So, little column A, little column B. It is said that in his childhood, the god Apollo gave him a lyre or lyre, depends on how you want to pronounce it. I'm going to say lyre, so just we don't have just so we don't have problems with my accent. But he got a lyre from Apollo, and that's a musical instrument, the one that was on the image preview. And then it is also said that the nine muses taught him how to play that instrument. So he got the best education in regards to music. The legend goes that his music used to enchant the beasts. So whenever he played, just to practice or maybe to impress a lady somewhere, the lions, the tigers, and generally all animals would listen to him attentively. When he sang, as he played his instrument, he used to make the rocks and the trees move to follow the sound of his music. So there's a place in antiquity called Sona in Thrace, and in this place there were oak trees that were in the dancing position as Orpheus had left them one afternoon. Maybe some of them like this, some of them like that, making the robot. Um, After a visit to Egypt, Orpheus joined with Jason and the Argonauts. Some of you might know the story. The Argonauts set out on an expedition to Colchis to retrieve the Golden Fleece, which also came up in our previous story. In this expedition, there were many known heroes, all conveniently strong, like physically strong. And then there was Orpheus, who wasn't strong like the rest. So he didn't row in the boat, but he sang and played his lyre and sang sailor songs, syncopated songs, so the rest of the crew could row with a rhythm. I don't know any any sailor songs, but if anyone knows, give them to us in the chat. It is said that Orpheus's contribution to the expedition was the following: he could control the weather. So this guy sang so well that when a big storm was building up and stalking the ship, Orpheus would just grab his lyre, play a few tunes, sing a little bit, and the storms would be left as a calm wind so the Argonauts could continue on their expedition. Um, Orpheus was instrumental, excuse me the pun, when the Argonauts came upon the Sirens, which, as we know, are mythical creatures which are half women and half fish. The upper half is a woman, the bottom half, they have sort of like a fish tail. And the original tale of the sirens, which comes from these times, they were very evil creatures, and they used to enchant sailors to come close to the water with their singing, and they would uh, grab them and pull them towards the bottom of the ocean. They were really mean, the sirens. Ulysses, which is another Greek hero, when faced with the sirens, tied himself to the biggest mast of the ship and covered his ears with wax so he wouldn't give in to the temptation of the sirens. So Orpheus sang so well that when the sirens came upon the ship and heard Orpheus playing and singing, the sirens, out of sheer shame, stopped singing. And this gives us the clue that he was really good at singing. When he came back from Colchis after the Argonauts expedition was over, he married Eurydice. And here starts the story that we wanted to tell today. Before it was just a preamble setting you in who this Orpheus was and give you a little bit backstory. So now he's married to Eurydice, who was a really beautiful woman, and who I like to think he seduced with his singing and his lyre. He came up upon her and started doing his thing. Um, they went to Thrace, and one day Eurydice was around playing with her friends, the Naiads, in a field near Tempe. So a man came upon her, Aristius, sorry, I just went defaulted back to Spanish for a second there, Aristius, who was a beekeeper, I'm sorry, not a barkeeper, a beekeeper, or possibly a satyr. And he saw her and immediately liked her. As we know, satyrs are either men with horses' ears, horses' legs, and a tail, or in the Roman version, the satyrs are a man with the torso of a man. They have goat ears, tail, and legs. So they're either kind of a man horse or a man goat. Unfortunately, this man decided to force himself upon Eurydice. He started chasing her, and Eurydice's reaction was the correct one. She started running from this man. So as the chase went on, Eurydice stepped on a snake while barefoot. And the snake did what Ophidians do when a woman steps on while running from a man who's chasing her to assault her, right? What did the snake do? They do what snake do. She bit her. And I'm sorry to say that because of this bite, Eurydice, I mean, well, not from the bite, from the venom, but because of this, Eurydice dies. So, after dying, Eurydice went to the place where all the people went during classical antiquity. She went to Tartarus, which basically means hell in today's terms. But we must stop to do a little tangent and explain this a bit further, because in ancient Greece, for a long time, the underworld was where everyone dead went. But in the underworld, there were two places. One place called Tartarus proper, which is kind of a comparison with hell. And then they also have the Elysian fields. And that would be something akin heaven. So when you died, you either went to Tartarus proper or to the Elysium fields. But they were both underground. They were both just that the Elysium fields was a gated community within Tartarus that not everyone could get in. Now, it is said that in his grief, Orpheus played a song so sad that all the nymphs and all the gods in Greece wept. But Orpheus, after he was done with his song, and very upset by the death of his wife, set out to go and get her. He went into Tartarus, and you maybe wonder how he reached Tartarus. Well, we know where he entered. And I'll let you know. So, in the future, if something like this happens to you and you need to bring someone back from the dead, you know where to go. So, remember, you heard it here first. So, where's this entrance to hell? It's in a place called Aorno. And over there, there's a cave which leads to a river called Cocytus, which is not far from the river Styx. Nasty neighborhood, if I ever heard of one, I can assure you. Um, the first quote unquote person Orpheus meets when making, while already in Tartarus, is the boatman Charon, who is the one that crosses the putrid waters of the hellish rivers of Tartarus with a barge, and whose feast is one obol. So the Greeks used to bury their dead with a coin inside their mouth so they could pay Charon's fee. Now, Charon had fame of being incorruptible, so Orpheus, who wasn't dead and who probably didn't have an oval in his mouth nor anywhere else, he bribed Karen with a few songs. And I like to think that he must have sung I Want It That Way, or maybe Hit Me Baby One More Time, maybe sang some tango, some guarachas. I mean, I don't know any Greek songs, so that's what I like to think that Orpheus sang while on Karen. And fun fact, I do have a tattoo of Karen, like here, which is interesting to say the least. Um, now, after being given way and carried in his barge by Charon, Orpheus arrives at Hades' palace, where Hades lived with his wife Persephone, someone who came passing by in in our first show. She's Demeter's daughter, and Demeter, you will surely remember, was the one that ate a little bit of Tantalus's son Pelops, which he made in a stew for the gods. Now, Persephone lived in the underworld for 6 months of the year, and then lived the other 6 months lived in the surface world. We might day one tell the story of how this came about, of Persephone and Hades and Demeter. But today, let's say that Orpheus gained an audience with them, and he started to sing. His music was so captivating and so good that it is said for a moment, a very brief moment, while Orpheus sang, all the torment in hell ceased. Ixion's wheel stopped for a moment. Tantalus was able to drink and eat. Sisyphus, who was pushing a stone that would roll back down the hill, Sisyphus' stone stopped rolling. And Hades and Persephone were charmed by Orpheus's art. When he was done, they requested many anchors. They said, "Oh, hey, Orpheus, sing me Let It Be." They asked for Bohemian Rhapsody. They asked for Redemption Song, and all of these songs that people sing today with a guitar on a bonfire. You know, they requested all bonfire songs, and Orpheus went and he gave all the anchors they requested them. Everyone clapped, bravo, bravo. They took their hats off, general happiness. So Orpheus, after a while, said, "Excuse me, my wife was chased by this dude. She stepped on a snake that bit her. She died. Could I take her back with me?" Now, Hades and Persephone said yes, surprisingly. And they asked him, they said, "Sure, go ahead, but sing me some more." So Orpheus sang "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina." He sang the tango La Comparsita. He sang "Hips Don't Lie." He sang "Maria Maria," "Back in Black," and "The Ace of Spades," just to make the underworld people happy. So after he was done finally with his singing, they let him go. But before they let him go, they said, "We're going to impose a condition on you," which Orpheus should have rejected. Because as we know, every time a condition is placed on people in the myths, it is that very condition which ends up dragging the hero to oblivion. But Orpheus heard the condition, and the condition was that yes, you can take her, but you can't look back until you have both reached the sunlight in the entrance of Tartarus. And Orpheus said, "Well, very well." Started walking, Orpheus in front, Eurydice behind. And as we were probably predicting from just a few sentences ago, they were almost at the goal. Uh, Orpheus could already see the light of the surface world, and his feelings got the best of him. They were walking through a narrow path. He had the light almost there, very near, just a few extra steps to reach the goal, and he started thinking. Doubt started seeping in. Hey, is it possible they tricked me? What if they're just pulling my leg? And he must have thought, when someone tells you don't turn around, it's because they're doing something. So unfortunately, Orpheus turned around, and some versions of the story say that Eurydice disappeared in that moment. Some other stories say that she was turned into a salt statue, and that salt statue is still there to this day, maybe in this position, lamenting Orpheus as she sees him to start to turn around, or maybe like this, almost ready to yell, "Don't!" So now we have Eurydice dead for the second time this story. And seems like this time it was definitive. Orpheus' reaction was to double back, met Karen again, and demanded to be let through. He attempted to bribe him, with a few more songs. So he sang Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, he sang the Macarena, he sang Azuquita pa'l Café, he sang the real Slim Shady. But this time, Karen, as we said, he was incorruptible. So he just sang back to Orpheus 2 lines of a witty little song. Karen sang to him, "Let it go, let it go." And Orpheus had no choice but to go back to the world of the mortals. And he could never see Eurydice again. Following this, the god Dionysius appeared in Thrace. We all know Dionysius, the one with the wine and the general debauchery, Bacchus for the Romans. And Orpheus didn't give the due honors to the god as it was customary in ancient Greece. But not only that, he started preaching other mysteries and other things that the god Dionysius became angry. He espoused that how much more permissible it was to commit murder for sacrifices, and preached that Helios was the biggest among all the gods. And most of you have probably guessed Dionysius was angry and offended. He instilled in the women of Thrace an extreme hatred for Orpheus, which in turn made these women decide to attack him. Now, one day in which the husbands of all of these women were in the temple of Apollo, in which Orpheus was a high priest, women were not allowed on this temple. So all the women gathered when their husbands were inside, and as it was customary to leave your weapons on the entrance to the temple, these women ambushed them, grabbed the weapons, stormed the temple, and killed everyone. Um, for Orpheus, they chopped him into little pieces, except for his head, and scattered them like confetti all over. Now, his head was kept intact, and it was thrown into a river called the Hebro. It's Hebro with an H and not the Ebro that one's in Spain. Another version of the story is that the woman of Thrace killed him because Orpheus, faithful to the memory and mourning of the loss of his wife, refused to lay with them, if you know what I mean. Some others say that not wanting to lay with women, Orpheus surrounded himself with young men. And some people say that he's the one that invented homosexuality. But let me tell you that honor begins to Thamyris, who fell in love with another young man called Jacinth. And this young man, Jacinth, ended up in this myth, ended up turning into a flower. But given that it's only just us here tonight and we're in confidence among friends, I'm going to tell you a little secret. Orpheus had a lover, and this lover's name was Calais. He was one of the winged sons of Boreas, and Calais means the one who blows. It is discussed whether he had his wings in his heels, and some people say that doubt that, because how are you going to fly with wings just on your heels when you're not necessarily a god? So some people say that they do have their wings where the rest of us have them, in their back. So it is also said that when Orpheus died, malady struck Thrace, and when consulted, the oracle said it was a punishment for the death of the poet. And to remove the curse, it was necessary to retrieve Orpheus' head and give it funeral rites. So fishermen went to the Hebron River and retrieved Orpheus's head. They found the head beached on the coast, alone, still singing. And uh, Orpheus's head is still there on the Elysium fields, singing to his heart's content for eternity. Now, this is where the story start to diverge a little bit. So it is also said after his death that his instrument, the lyre, was transported to the heavens, and there it became the constellation of the lyre. There's also another story that says Orpheus' head was attacked by a jealous snake, and Apollo turned that disgusting reptile into stone. And the head was placed in a cave in Antissa, where Orpheus gained the power of prophecy, and he made prophecies day and night. All day he was Orpheus head like placed on a rock, just telling prophecies. But the problem was that this made Apollo angry because his oracles, the one in Delphi and the one in Claros, were being abandoned by the faithful because they were consulting Orpheus's head. Now, Apollo went to the cave and unsuccessfully tried to strangle Orpheus, who was pretty much fine given his proverbial lack of neck. After all, he was just a head. Now, Apollo, after seeing that he wasn't going to be able uh, to kill, let's say, Orpheus, because at this point he's dead, but not really. So it's a weird situation to be in, trying to kill someone who's already dead, but it's still just singing, and now on top of singing, they're saying prophecies nonstop. So Apollo told him, "It's like, hey, buddy, stay out of my business. I'm the one who deals with prophecy." And Orpheus just stopped prophesizing. And the head is probably, I'm sorry, the head was transported into the Elysium camps. We have Isabak disconnected for just a really tiny moment. So now we have finished the story of Orpheus for today. Now I have a little bit other tidbits of information. There are other singing heads in myth history. One is in Welsh mythology. There's the head of Bran, the king of Alices, whose head sings in the rock of Harlech in the north of Wales, facing France. And it is part of the legend that as soon as, that as long as that head is there facing France, the United Kingdom will be okay, and it won't be possible to make an invasion on the UK through the strait that separates them with France. There's also the Rokurokubi from Japan, which are spirits that are basically floating heads that can sing. And I couldn't get much else into it. It's a very complex thing to explain these Japanese myths, and I honestly don't really like them, so I'm just going to say that. We have a folk legend among these parts. I'm from Uruguay, and this is specifically to the region of Santiago del Estero in Argentina, and it talks of a floating head which is called the humita, meaning small head in Quechua. And this head sometimes rolls on the floor or flies around, making a soft sound like the wind. Some say that being accompanied by the humita during a trip through the countryside in Santiago del Estero will keep away bad spirits. But there's also terrible legends about this head too. And finally, these are not singing heads, but I thought it was kind of cool to bring them up. There were also the Shuar tribe, or the Jibaros, who were famed headhunters, and it is said that with the terrible poison curare, they would reduce their victim's head in size, dry them up, and wear them around the neck as trophies. These heads that the Jibaros wore around their necks fortunately didn't sing, because that would be absolutely terrifying, having a warrior coming up to you with singing heads as a necklace. That would be a little bit too much. So now, as we do every show, I'm going to give my dedications, and I'm going to ask Isa who he would like to dedicate this chat to. And I will say I will dedicate this to Carlos Gardel, who, as Orpheus, was one of the greatest singers that actually ever lived, and who is well revered in these latitudes in Uruguay and Argentina. And I have a bonus dedication to give today. I would like to dedicate this to all the people that, because of their singing, or maybe their voice, their love, or even their mere presence among us, they, just like Orpheus, suspend the torments that we live through every day. That's the end of our story. Isa, what do you think? Did you like it? And who would you like to dedicate it to?
I should have mentioned this earlier on, but who I'm going to dedicate it to is my musical fraternity. I am a member of a musical fraternity called Phi Mu Alpha Symphonia, and Orpheus is one of the heroes. Is kind of a primary hero within the fraternity's lore. So it's kind of really powerful to hear the story. Um, what do I feel about this story? It's a story that has a lot of significance and meaning. Um, as you know, just even in my connection to my fraternity, um, because what he symbolizes is the power of music, and it's really interesting because every myth has lots of stories, um, and one kind of telling of the story of Orpheus is it's interesting because you mentioned Calais, um,
Mhm.
because Calais is an Argonaut, is one of the Argonauts, um, and is male, which is interesting, and which is a part of the Greek mythology. But a lot of the narrative is with Eurydice. Eurydice is his wife. But it's interesting because depending on the way that you look at the story, Eurydice is kind of the character he's lamenting, is the person he's lamenting. And some tales it's Calais who's he's lamenting, but basically he has a fatal interaction with the Thracians. And in this interaction, it's kind of almost sort of like a role-playing video game or a movie where he plays music and it becomes like the shield that protects him against the weapons. They throw weapons at him and he uses the music as like a weapon, as a shield, to defend against these attacks. Um, Kind of like, I guess, with Dungeons and Dragons, like the bard may have that kind of power too. The music takes on a physical material power as well. But what happens is the Thracians yell and overturn they neutralize the musical power, and then that's how they're able to defeat him and destroy him. And in some of the tellings, the reason why they get so infuriated is because they want to be his lover, but he's interested in his own lover. So he's not interested in them. He's interested in who he's interested in. And they don't and hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, as they say. So that kind of has a major impact because then they're like, well, we're going to destroy you. If we can't have you, then no one can. So it's just a tragic story, but depending on the story, they said that he goes back to his to Eurydice, in the afterlife and within Hades. But that's one telling. But with all mystical stories and mythologies, there's multiple tellings. There's not just one narrative, and I think that that's what we have to understand. But in this telling, I think it's kind of a powerful story because um, he, even though he's just heartbroken and at lost, he still it's a power of love that he doesn't give up his love, even though other beings may lust after him. He still is committed and has that commitment, and that commitment leads to his death. So to me, that's a really impactful moral story. Um, and it's a he's a kind of a interesting, powerful character that goes on lots of adventures, and I hope we can read some Arabian stories like from the 1001 Arabian Nights. There's a lot of really cool stuff
Yes,
there.
I was thinking about that. You read my mind. Next week we have the story of two caliph, Yazid the second, and I hope I'm not butchering me. And next week, if you're in the show, you feel free to correct me with any words I say. I think the name of the other one is Abud al Dawla.
Abu Adawla. Yeah, that makes sense.
I think they're caliphs from Baghdad, and we're going to tell two
Yes.
stories about them.
Yes. Yes.
But at one point, yes, I want to maybe retell some, at least snippets from the 1001 Nights, which is one of my favorite books. I don't know why, but I have it appeals to me on so many levels. Reading the story of Sherazad and Dunyasad, and these people who
Yeah.
have such a great love for, in the case of the 1001 Nights, her
Storytelling.
sister, and in the case of Orpheus, the love for his wife, that they go and they face insurmountable challenges and still gather the strength to pull through. I see that as a very powerful image. And when people, there was one show we did that we talked about the people who say, oh, I want a romance like the one in Romeo and Juliet, and how I don't get that, because it was a romance that left a bunch of dead people, lasted 3 days, and in the end they weren't together. I feel more like I want a love like Orpheus had,
I think
like
that's powerful.
one of those. Yeah.
And I think with the 1001 Arabian Nights, what's really cool about it is it's actually a very feminist story. It talks about a woman who's empowered in a very kind of patriarchal space where men are dominating, because that's what we know how it is in the middle, in many, in pretty much most cultures. They're very patriarchally oriented. So it's kind of really powerful that the woman is the protagonist of the story, and she overcomes the odds of you know having her life at risk, based on, if we go into the story based on the background, but she's able to use her powerful storytelling ability to survive, which I think is kind of spectacular. And I want to comment on the way that you told the story. I thought it was really funny that you did a lot of pop cultural stuff. I actually like all those songs that you mentioned. "Hit Me Baby One More Time" and "Back to Black." I was like, okay, we've got a person who's got a whole list of different kinds of genres going on here. You know, um, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking, it's like I have to say something here, and I started to think, and all I could think were modern songs, and I just said like, okay, let's go with it. It's like I don't know any Greek songs. I'm not going to say anything that. Let's at least try to make it fun, and this is kind of the aim of the show. It's me telling a story and just you so that you get a little peek of what goes on in my brain, like in general. This is the way I see life, and in general I always have those kind of things. Most of the time, depending on the setting, I will tell some of those jokes, but they mostly happen in my head, and it's a good avenue that I really enjoy being here and sharing it. with you and with the other guests and the audience. It's a really fun thing. The whole process of making the show is kind of interesting in its own way. So we might one day go a little bit more into the detail of how that comes about. Um, but yeah, this was a fun story. Orpheus, he's such a good character. And there's more. I mean, I just went through, I kind of picked a few things, but the good thing with the Greek myth is that they intersect each other so much, and you have characters that appear on one, then appear on another, and do this and that, and that's why I like them. But moving forward, I know we did two, let's say two Greek myths in a row. Next week, after the program, the show about the caliphs, I'm thinking about going a little bit towards Norse mythology and tell some stories maybe about Loki, which is one of my favorite characters, and in fiction, who's sort of one of the first anti-heroes that maybe except for Hercules, but he's one of the first anti-heroes, at least that I knew. And he's good, but he can also be evil, and he's most of the times mischievous and looking out for a laugh or just messing around with people. I do relate. Young Max was a little bit like that. I'm more of a grown-up person now, so I don't do that stuff anymore. But it still happens in my head, ways to mess with people. So starting next week, no, the following, we might do something with the Norse mythology. And yeah, now that you bring it up, going back to the 1001 Nights would be kind of cool also. So I might revisit that. I'm going to make a note here on my trusted copybook. And any other thoughts on your mind before we close it out tonight?
Um, I just think that this is really fun. I love this storytelling segment. Um, I think it's kind of a breath of fresh air instead of hearing about flat Earth and globe. I'm gonna be honest. I'm really tired of hearing that story. So these kind of stories. They're a lot more fun for me. You know,
Yes.
there's a lot more to explore. I don't. It's very hard to explore the flat Earth stuff. I'm just to be honest with you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to offend anyone on that. It's not an easy thing to explore. There's not too much to talk about. But with this, there's so many avenues you can go with, and I think it's really fun.
And go, or maybe get a little bit away from the seriousness of Jesus and Muhammad and the
Yeah,
Jews. And yeah, we can be silly, we can make jokes. It's a I like that change of pace for the channel. It's a nice
I
palate
agree.
cleanser.
I agree. No anti-Semitism. Yes, that's another thing that I just hate hearing on the debate channel. I'm like, can I not hear anti-Semitism tonight, please? You know.
Yeah,
So
and we try to preach. They're fun stories. They're goofy. They're silly, but
that's
they do
it.
have their message, their power. If you want to take it, you can do both. You can have your laughs and then have your moment of introspection. Go about the messages that these things, and it's always fun to tell stories. I always kind of like that. So Thomas Jackson is asking, is there a debate tonight? No, sir. That's why we're having this show. Uh, this is my show. Welcome. You can rewind and watch it back. Today we told the story of Orpheus. Let me do some housekeeping, and we'll just leave it there for tonight. A little bit shorter than we do, but it's around the ballpark. The idea for the show is to have an hour, but it some stories are longer, some stories are shorter, and the more people we are, the more stuff we have to to talk about. So let's see. we have for the moment scheduled Ocean's debate on the 4th, that is a Sunday. And after I will be hosting the pre-show because Justin is moderating that debate, and it's Ocean versus Nadir on Is the Quran Scientific? I'm very excited for that debate. I do hope that Nadir joins the after show. I don't see it as likely to happen, but hope. Yeah, we got Mohammed, and I didn't think that would have happened either. He had to go. Looks like it yesterday, but we want to thank Mohammed for joining us, giving us. He was very good with us, and he was basically the only one holding that position. So, Mohammed, if you get to watch this, thank you so much. And I would like to send everyone's best wishes to Ocean, who sent us a message today. His food wasn't altogether well today, and he was in a little bit of pain, but he's seen the doctors. He's got some blood work done, so it's time to just for him to rest, prepare, make sure that he's okay to take the debate on Sunday, and make sure that he can heal and be back with us 100% afterwards. So, everyone, go to the community tab on the Matters Now channel and send your best wishes to Ocean so that he can come back stronger and soon. We love you, Ocean. Thank you for everything you do for us. And Isa, any final words before we go? Anything you have coming up?
Um, well, I'm always here. As you know, I love doing this. Peace and blessings to everyone, as always. I really appreciate Matters Now and modern day debates, and just love the dialogue. And I wanted to say one thing about Mohammed. I think he did a really great job. I'm really happy for Samir. I like having that we can have, Dr. J having other voices that are that add to our whole kind of colorful tapestry. And I definitely really appreciated the dialogue from those spaces. And I hope Mohammed will come on more. I think he has a
Yeah.
lot to share and a unique voice. So as well as Samir and Dr. J. So and I always love the whole crew. Earl and Robin and Ozian and you and we have some new folks too, like Colorado Biker and uh, there was a British gentleman. I forget his name. Starts with the S.
Yes, his name is
Simon
Simos Funk.
Simos. Yeah. So I'm very happy that we can keep, that our Matters Now family will grow bigger and, have more cool dialogues. Oh, and Hannah too. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
All right. Next week, tentatively Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, like usual. This week we moved it because yesterday we had a debate, but and you will see the videos are there. I'm trying to make them ahead of schedule, so the video links will be there the in our live page for you to click and have that reminder set for when we go live. And I think I don't have anything else to say for today. Thank you so much for being there. Thank you for coming to the Tell Me That Story show on Matters Now. We love you all. Thank you very much and have a good weekend. We will see you on Sunday for the pre show and after show on Ocean's Debate.